You walk into a party that everyone else seems to be enjoying just fine. The music isn't even that loud. There are maybe 30 people in the room. But 20 minutes in, something starts happening under your skin, a low-grade static. Like every conversation, every laugh, every clink of glass is landing directly on your nervous system instead of bouncing off it the way it seems to for everyone else. You smile, you keep talking, but inside, you are already running on fumes. And the worst part isn't the exhaustion. The worst part is the voice in the back of your head asking why you can't just be normal about this. Here's what that voice got completely wrong. What you just felt isn't weakness, and it isn't social anxiety, and it definitely isn't you being dramatic. There's a specific neurological reason your brain processes that room differently than the person standing next to you. And once you understand the actual mechanism behind it, everything, the overwhelm, the need to disappear afterward, the strange guilt starts to make a different kind of sense. By the end of this, you're going to have a name for what's been happening to you, a clear picture of why your brain is wired this way, and something real you can do with that information. This is Mind With Me, and we're going inside the one trait that science has spent decades studying, while the rest of the world spent those same decades telling you to toughen up. Because that's exactly what happened, isn't it? You got told to toughen up, or to stop being so sensitive. Or someone in your life said with genuine bafflement, "Why do you let things affect you so much?" As if you were choosing it. As if there was a dial somewhere you could just turn down. The label that gets attached to people like you is almost always framed as a character flaw. Too emotional, too intense, too much. You absorb criticism like it was written specifically about you. A piece of music hits you in a way that feels almost physical. You notice the shift in someone's tone before they've even finished their sentence. You feel the atmosphere of a room change the way other people feel, a temperature change immediately, bodily, undeniably. And for years, maybe your whole life, you've been treating this like something that needs to be fixed or hidden or apologized for. The exhausting performance of pretending you're not affected by everything when the truth is you are affected by everything, and deeply, and you always have been. But here is the reframe that changes the entire story. You were never broken. You were never too much. Your nervous system was simply built to a different specification, one that evolution kept in the population for a reason, even if nobody in your immediate circle ever explained that to you. The name for what you experience is sensory processing sensitivity. Psychologist Elaine Aron at Stony Brook University coined the term in the 1990s after noticing that a significant portion of her research subjects consistently processed information, emotional, sensory, social, at a depth that the general population simply didn't. Her research, and the decades of work that followed, landed on a number that is both surprising and quietly validating. Roughly 1 in 5 people have a nervous system wired this way, 20%. Not a rare disorder, not a clinical dysfunction, a trait. The same way some people have a faster metabolism or sharper spatial awareness, some brains, your brain run a deeper processing loop on incoming data before producing a response. Aron called people with this trait highly sensitive persons, and the science behind it has only grown more precise since then. This is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Cause 1. Your brain's sensory gating is calibrated differently. Think of sensory gating like a bouncer at a club. In most people's nervous systems, the bouncer is fairly aggressive, filtering out background noise, ambient detail, irrelevant emotional signals before they ever reach conscious awareness. Your bouncer lets almost everything through. The fluorescent light that hums, the slight irritation in someone's voice, the emotional weight sitting in a silence that other people read as neutral. None of it gets stopped at the door. It all comes in, and your brain processes all of it with the same intensity it would give to something that actually matters. A Hangin Hongtrum Mu Born study using fMRI imaging found that highly sensitive individuals showed significantly greater activation in brain regions associated with awareness, empathy, and integration of sensory information, particularly the mirror neuron system and the insula, which is the part of the brain most responsible for feeling what others feel. Your empathy isn't a personality quirk. It is a structural feature of how your brain allocates its processing power. Cause 2. Your dopamine reward system runs on a slower, more deliberate circuit. Most people get a clean hit of dopamine from novelty, a new face, a new environment, a quick social interaction. Your system processes the reward more carefully, weighing more variables before releasing it. This is why overstimulating environments don't feel exciting to you the way they might to someone else. They feel like running too many applications at once on a computer that is already working harder than everyone else's. The machine isn't broken, it's doing more. It's just doing more than the environment was designed to accommodate. Imagine trying to read a novel in a room where someone is constantly changing the TV channel. The novel is worth reading. The problem is the channel changing, not your ability to read. Cause 3. Your nervous system has a longer consolidation window. After a stimulus, a difficult conversation, a crowded commute, a piece of news, your brain doesn't move on as quickly as others do. It keeps processing. It looks for meaning. It runs the experience through multiple layers of association and emotional memory before filing it away. This is why you can replay a conversation from 3 days ago and still feel the emotional texture of it as if it just happened. It's not rumination in the clinical pathological sense. It's a brain doing what it was built to do, extracting every last piece of usable information from an experience before letting it go. Like a gold panner who works the same stretch of river twice because they know there's more there that a single pass would miss. Now, here's the question that actually matters, the one that determines whether this trait costs you or works for you. What happens when you never learned to manage the volume? Because there is a cost. If you've spent years interpreting your sensitivity as a flaw, you've probably developed a set of coping strategies that look functional from the outside, but are quietly draining you from the inside. You push through overstimulating environments without giving yourself recovery time. You absorb other people's emotional states and carry them home without realizing you've done it. You set internal standards for how much stimulation you should be able to handle based on what everyone around you seems to handle, and then you punish yourself for falling short of a threshold that was never yours to begin with. That gap between what your nervous system actually needs and what you've been telling it to accept is where the chronic exhaustion lives. So here is what you can actually do with this, starting now. The first move is environmental audit, not avoidance. There's a difference between understanding that certain environments drain you faster than others and building your life around never encountering them. The audit means you start tracking, even just mentally, which specific inputs cost you the most. Noise level, social density, emotional unpredictability, screen overload. Once you can name your highest cost inputs, you can make deliberate choices about when you expose yourself to them and how much recovery buffer you build in afterward. This isn't self-pampering. This is the same logic an athlete uses when they schedule rest days, not because rest is the goal, but because performance requires recovery. The second move is what researchers call stimulus narrowing, and you can do it in under 2 minutes. When you feel the internal static rising, that overloaded, slightly dissociated feeling that signals your system is at capacity, you deliberately reduce your sensory field. You focus on one texture, one sound, one fixed point in your visual field. Not to zone out, but to give your nervous system a single thread to follow instead of 30. It's the difference between trying to listen to an orchestra when every instrument is playing at full volume and asking one instrument to step forward. Your brain can follow one thread. It just struggles when all the threads arrive simultaneously at the same volume. The third move is the most important and the one most sensitive people skip. You stop treating your decompression time as optional. After a high stimulus period, a workday, a social event, a difficult conversation, your nervous system needs a consolidation window. 15 to 30 minutes of genuinely low input time. Not scrolling, not background TV, something quiet. Not because you're antisocial or fragile, but because your brain is still processing everything that happened. And interrupting that process is what leads to the emotional spillover that shows up hours later as irritability or sudden tears, or that strange feeling of being overwhelmed by something small. And here is the reframe that I want you to carry out of this. That bouncer who lets everything through the one that makes loud rooms painful and other people's sadness contagious and beautiful things, almost unbearably moving, that same bouncer is the reason you notice what others miss. The shift in a friend's energy before they've said anything is wrong. the detail in a piece of writing that everyone else skimmed past. The moment in a conversation where the real thing someone needed to say was hiding just beneath the surface of what they actually said. Your depth of processing is not a sensitivity problem. It's a perceptual advantage that the world spent years trying to talk you out of. The party that drained you in 20 minutes? You read that room more completely in those 20 minutes than most people would in an entire evening. You were never too much. You were always exactly enough, just operating in a world that was calibrated for 20% less than what you're actually capable of perceiving. So tell me something, when did you first realize that you process things differently than the people around you? Was there a specific moment, a specific age, a specific room you walked into and knew? Leave it in the comments. I read them, and more often than you'd expect, someone else's story in that thread is the one that finally makes another person feel less alone. If what this channel does for you is put language to things you've always felt but never had words for, there's a lot more where this came from.